you remember Rwanda, you begin to describe crimes in tribes and races, then obviously you are looking at danger ahead of you. And there are also the cosmopolitan reasons, because kidnapping and abductions are not necessarily rural crimes. They are urban crimes, and that is because they are negotiated and resolved through the exchange of money in several hands. Now, our country has been such a great country for a lot of people in the last, would I say 60 years? That's since independence. And one of the advantages that we have had over time is that with the federal structure, every Nigerian citizen has the opportunity or has the right to move to any part of the country, excuse me, and continue to coexist with those people. As a matter of fact, that has also given room to the kind of laxity that there is along our borders across, the country. Now, let me quickly state without hesitation that most of the crimes that have come out of the last 2-3 years are crimes of a retreating army. If you remember, fortunately for me, I was one of the first people who covered the Boko Haram attacks in Bauchi in September 2019. 2019, yes. No, 2009. 2009 in Bauchi. That was when they went, Boko Haram had their leader, Musa, had a debate, a conversation over religion with, two intellectuals in the university in Bauchi. Now, this is a cleric that is completely illiterate, who does not reason or has any logical conclusions to his explanations of the Quran. Now, sitting side by side with intellectual Islamic clerics who have, professorships and doctorates in explaining those doctrines. So it was very easy for them to put him down, and afterward it became a personal thing for him because his pride had been hurt, and he went into Bauchi to attack the two Malams. Now, following from that is what led to his, summary execution, almost by firing squad by a certain policeman in Maiduguri. That ultimately led to what we all know today as, Boko Haram. Now, sometime in 2016 and 2017, obviously the Boko Haram insurgency had begun to dwindle. And that is because of the decimation that it went through, with the Nigerian army and, the joint forces, including, a group that you can never forget, and that is the volunteers, who also went into the bushes like hunters and helped the army fight this war. Now, since then, this retreating, insurgents began to find their ways into cities and towns in the middle of northern Nigeria, and eventually had to devise another means of, fighting this country. That is specifically what gave rise to perhaps what you today call banditry and kidnappings. Now, I say no. These crimes cannot, disintegrate our country or cannot break our country, because these are crimes by the masses. By the masses, I don't mean by your economic power. I mean by your social standing. Most of these crimes are perpetuated by people who are very low on the cadre of options or stratifications in Nigeria. And that makes it very difficult for the elite who have the guns, who have the military, who have the police and all the security agencies to succumb to, their antics. So ultimately, what I believe is that most of these crimes will be resolved, by the government as soon as, the contending powers or contending forces in the country begin to align or find spaces that they are comfortable with. Now, secondly, I would say there are cosmopolitan reasons, and these cosmopolitan reasons are because people are making this crime has become a business. Let's face it. The last crime that took place in Katsina State had a very, very gruesome story behind it because of the kind of transactions that took place between the kidnappers, their middlemen, and the government. True or false, a lot of things go very viral in this country. And the story was not good. I'm not going to repeat it here, but everybody knows that there were allegations and accusations of one shortchanging another between them, which was, one of the reasons why I say this is a cosmopolitan thing. In Hausa we say, so for this reason, I want to believe that by the time we get to a head and government agents and other, senior citizens of this country began to intervene in these crimes, they would obviously, disappear, or at least become regular crimes like they used to be before. Now, I'm not speaking exactly for the Nigeria Governors Forum, but of course I have, followed their conversations and seen the kind of seriousness with which they take these crimes in the country. Particularly, I would say the case of the state police becomes very, very important because governors have agitated for a state police, and the arguments against them whether or not they should have state police is that they would abuse, the system. But this is far from the truth, and nothing can be farther from the truth as far as I'm concerned, because I continue to propagate that idea that the state police would be very, very useful to this country, especially in curbing these crimes that are beginning to threaten our unity. Now, the state police could effectively, be utilized if there is also some injection of modern technology in policing in our country. For one, I think most people who migrate from one part of Nigeria to another do so for basically economic reasons. And to make a rule that would make that impracticable would be to ultimately agree with the insurgents that Nigeria does not need to exist. So I believe that, with the state police, we can still continue to identify each other positively and to know who comes into a society today and who comes tomorrow. Now, this will help in letting us know who is going into the bush at night and who is staying at his home. So there are other reasons that I think would keep Nigeria together, whether we like it or not. And these ones are the last group of reasons that I put, that's the sentimental reasons. For sentimental reasons, we have a lot of marriages across, states in this country. Igbo people get married to Yorubas, Yorubas get married to Kanuris, Kanuris get married to Fulanis, Fulanis get married to Biroms and other people in northern Nigeria. It's a very, very common practice. And this practice has made it impossible for us to just wake up one morning and say we are going to have to divide our country. Now, I will quickly inject one anecdote, and that is the one of Rwanda, which is one of the most recent cases of genocide that we see. In Rwanda, these people are the same. There is no difference between the Hutus and the Tutsis, but they were able to fight each other and lose almost 1 million or more than, slightly more than 1 million people. Now, the reason is simple. The media in Rwanda had acted or put itself between these descriptions and definitions and became cannon fodder for the, the angry people to be able to, use their argument. So I think, yes, our media has made certain mistakes by identifying crimes by tribe, but I believe that a lot of awareness is going into the media industry, and that is becoming untenable for it to continue. And as soon as crimes begin to lose their tribal toga, I believe we're going to also have a smoother country to live in. Now, my position on this is all on the positive because, when the push comes to shove, I'm a Nigerian and there is nothing I can do. Like, we used to hear, we have no other country but Nigeria. So I believe in the indivisibility of my country. And I strongly believe that the instruments that will bring Nigeria back together and make it move strongly forward are in place. It's somehow the case of the lack of political will or the lack of the political and social conviction for people to move themselves out of their seats and begin to tackle the problems that face our country very quickly. I'm going to possibly stop here in case there are some interventions that I need to take note of before we continue. So I yield here. Thank you very much.
Hello, are you there, sir?
Did anybody hear me? Hello, have I been talking to myself?
Hello, sir, you haven't. You can hear you.
Oh, you no, you haven't. Sorry, I think I might have muted everyone. So let me just unmute so people can. Yeah, perfect. Sorry, carry on, sir. Hello? Oga Barkindo, I think you might be on mute if you're speaking. You may be on mute, I think. Cindy, can you hear me? I don't know.
I can hear you loud and clear.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, did you hear me, Sandy?
Yes, I can hear you. Please go ahead.
Yes, I asked if it was okay for me to make a pause so that someone else I can listen to a few other interventions, or do I just need to continue?
Okay, you can continue, and then we take the questions. My colleague is there to take the questions when you're done, sir.
Okay. Now, after submitting that I don't believe that these crimes would, break Nigeria up, I'm trying to find out what are the next steps? What can Nigerians do, to make their country look as, habitable as they would like to? There are a few things that I have always looked at, and this is not necessarily exclusive for the young people, but the idea of empowerment in this country is one of the reasons why, banditry and insurgency are taking root. A lot of young people do not have the requisite capacity to, delve into the modern markets. Of course, there are young people who do things with social media and other modern, technique, but Nigeria still remains very backward, apart from the negative use of, social media devices and so on. Unless we're able to correct these impressions, I believe that our country is going to still continue to lag in this abyss of, retrogression, lack of, lack of opportunities, and anger. And these three vices do not necessarily make a good citizen, especially when that person is young. So I believe first and foremost that the issue of empowerment would ultimately make Nigeria a more governable and appreciable entity, so that it will begin to progress along with other countries. Now, the other thing is the kind of sentiment we have as Nigerians. They say 1 out of every 6 Africans is a Nigerian. And if you know what I mean, Nigeria is to west and, South Saharan Africa, what maybe Mexico is to South America, or Morocco to North Africa. We have a bad rap. In the last couple of years, a lot of Nigerians have been through harrowing experiences in different countries of Africa. And that is because Nigerians are not the only people who are criminally minded, but the propensity with which people describe Nigeria's crimes also helps in making us look worse than we truly are. We are obliged, and especially all of those stories are told by Nigerians themselves. So we are obliged by the circumstances in which we find ourselves to begin to at least, make corrections or make amends or even make our country a better place. And that would make Nigeria more attractive than the kind of places we go to in search of, healthcare facilities, in search of education, and especially in search of money. So it's my opinion that the things that make Nigeria unattractive to Nigerians and that make Nigerians feel like they are, likely to break up are very solvable and, workable problems that have solutions just at the tips of our fingers. There is this saying that your back has to be at the wall before you start a pushback. So I think at this moment that our backs are on the wall, and it's left to the people who lead us to begin the pushbacks. And these pushbacks are not in fighting people, but in ensuring that there is peace and security in the country. There is economic progress among the people. There are opportunities that everybody can share, and that, no matter how downtrodden you are, you would look at the same opportunities if you have the same capacities with your peers anywhere in the country. So these, to me, are very, germane questions that we need to deploy, to stop the secession of our country. And for me, it further buttresses the fact that I do not see the possibility of this country disintegrating, regardless of all the problems and, negative economic activity that we have. It's only fair, if you are a Nigerian, to look at the problems first and try to see how these problems can be ameliorated, than to just sit back on your pants and think that your country has gone to the lowest ebb of governance and that it is going to disintegrate. Now, if our elite had been the ones stealing people and killing each other, that would have been very easy. But look at the investments that people have had in Nigeria. Even in these periods when people think, Nigeria is in danger, there are a lot of people, trucks of people are being arrested along the streets, going to the other parts of the country, and vice versa. So we cannot, continue to contemplate the disintegration of our country just because of few skirmishes that are taking place in corners of the country. There are probably worse problems taking place in other countries, but they are not being mentioned because probably because their media is not involved, and or maybe because they're a quiet people. We're a very loud people. And we today have this medium that is called, the social media, that enables everybody to be an information disseminator. Now, this is negative for our country because even the insurgents use technology very, very quickly and effectively, and that's why they are able to, catch us off guard. Now, another thing is that our leaders need to wake up to a certain responsibility, and that responsibility is that of a head count. We don't know, and we wouldn't know ever if we continue like this. By the time a war breaks up, whether the people running out of this country are Nigerians or non-Nigerians, because there are all sorts of people within our boundaries, and we do not have any identified mechanism of separating a Nigerian from a non-Nigerian. And if 1 out of every 6 Black person is a Nigerian, then it will be very difficult for us to get to the root of this issue. But it is also a separatist issue. If you think about how Yugoslavia broke into Serbia, Croatia, and all these little Bosnia-Herzegovinas, you would know that being able to identify who we are is one of the issues that has made it impossible for us to make peace among ourselves. I remember that among those bandits that had come into town to negotiate with some of those people who claimed that they could negotiate with them, there was an argument over here in the northern Nigeria where a lot of people think that some of the leaders of these bandits were not Nigerian nationals. As a matter of fact, there was one who covered his face, throughout the negotiations, and everybody was agreed that that is not a Nigerian. Now, if non-Nigerians come into Nigeria and recruit Nigerians to destroy Nigeria, I think we need to begin to have a rethink about what kind of Nigerians they recruit to destroy their own country. Because you must be abysmally intractably indoctrinated for a foreigner to come into your country and convince you to fight a war against your people. I was opportune to be in Scandinavia, and I noticed between countries that are used to be called cousins. I mean, Sweden, Denmark, Norway, Finland are just, cousins. They speak virtually the same dialects, and they also do the same things. They have the same traditions. But I can tell you, if you buy a Nokia phone, which is made by a Finnish person, and sit among Swedish people who make, Sony Ericsson, or Ericsson as it used to be called, they would take offense, because as far as they're concerned, you can't live among us and then continue to buy products from another country while we make the same product, even if it's inferior to the one that comes from abroad. Well, talk less of when it's either equally effective or probably even superior. So I think the sense of nationhood that we share in this country is very, very base. A lot of people don't see Nigeria as a place that's worth living in. So they think destroying it is just, one of those things that you can do and get a better life. But that's not that easy. That resolution to me is a very simplistic approach to whether or not you want to keep your country together. Simplistic in the sense that, people don't just go to war and go home. There are the repercussions that, there are things that come from, evolve from wars. Families are broken, relationships are destroyed, economies are shattered, people die. So by the time wars
thank you very much, sir. Sorry to cut you short. Kindly show you, just summarize your thoughts in a few minutes, and then people ask you questions. I'm sure a lot of people are itching to ask you questions. Kindly just round up in a few minutes, 5 minutes max, so that people can go ahead and ask you questions.
I'll do that immediately.
Yes.
So as I'm saying, all these factors that I have mentioned earlier make it impossible for anybody to sit back and say that Nigeria is likely to disintegrate in the next couple of months or so. Besides, the United States had issued several statements about the disintegration of Nigeria by, I think, 1995 one time, then 2000, the year 2000, then the year 2015. But all these have not come to pass. Now, in summary, I want to say that I align myself very strongly with the position of the governors who I work for, that a state police, when allowed, would definitely keep Nigeria together, or at least make it more crime-free than it is today. Secondly, I also think that Nigeria would not disintegrate because of the new set of army chiefs that we have. I can see some measure of commitment and the willingness to deploy modern technology to fight crimes in Nigeria, and that would help in a long, in a very important way in putting us together. And thirdly, I want to say that it's our commitment. When I look at your faces, I see my brothers and sisters, and I see people that look like me, and we say injury to one is injury to all. So it's not likely that I would be happy seeing any of you go down. And I believe that that is the kind of sentiments that you share with me about me. And so I think we have very sentimental reasons to continue to stay together. And so banditry, insurgency, and kidnapping by the idiots amongst us will never, ever bring us to war. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much indeed for sharing your thoughts. Mr. Abdulrazaque Barkindo, that's the head of media and public affairs for the Nigerian Governors Forum. Thank you very much. If you're just tuning in or you're just joining in, we just discussed threats of secession, rampant kidnappings, banditry, terrorism, and armed conflicts. Can Nigeria survive? And he did justice to the topic. We have my colleague Tongyang Bakle. She's been waiting to take your questions and your comments. So I'll hand you over to Tongyang Bakle. Tongyang Bakle, over to you, please.
Okay, good evening, everyone. So I'll be taking the questions now. And sir, I will take the first question and then you answer, and then we move on to the other questions, please. So the first question is, what are the necessary steps you think government should adopt to stop these hilarious crimes?
Thank you very much. I think I have dwelt very, very deeply on the measures that would, drive these crimes out of our country. And I will make them very short so we can get a lot of time for more questions to come up. First, I talked about, state police. Second, I talked about empowerment of the young people and some of the, middle-aged people in Nigeria who have held their certificates over a long period of time and are getting angry because I understand that when you look at the checklists of those criminals in our midst, most of them have, very, very impressive, credentials. So they are angry because these things are not being deployed to use. So I think equal opportunity to all is also one of the catalysts for anger in our country. And most of all, I think, if we are able to douse, the impressions that a lot of people have about us by ourselves, then we will begin to find harmony. Because like I said at the end, it is Nigerians who tell bad things or bad tales about Nigerians, and that would also be, it would be good if that would be stopped. I hope I've made myself clear here. So next question.
Okay, yes, sir, thank you. And the second question is, do you believe Nigeria has a leadership problem, or do you believe Nigeria has a fellowship problem?
Fellowship. Oh, absolutely. I believe Nigeria has a leadership problem, big leadership problem, because our selection methods have not been properly altruistic or unequivocally altruistic, because we are not being led by the best amongst us, and the selection process has made it so. Now, I'm not just absolute about the leadership problem. I'm also absolute about the followership problem. The followership in Nigeria has become so decimated that Nigerians are afraid to raise their fingers against what they think is wrong. And that amply makes it possible for things that are right to dominate our society. I believe the Nigerian people who follow the leaderships in a very cult-like manner are not doing justice to themselves, because we have not seen leaders who deserve the kind of followership that they get from our people, especially when people become so dogmatic that they think they can even risk their lives for an individual. I think you can only get to build a better country if you believe you can risk your life on a principle. or a philosophy that works, but not on a person. So I think we have both a leadership and a followership problem in Nigeria. Thank you.
Okay, sir. So the third one is Nigerians have been made to believe that government is empowering bandits by continuously by paying for ransom at different scenarios. What will government do differently to win back the trust of its citizens in terms of security?
Um, this is probably a very simple question to resolve. You know, if government continues to negotiate with bandits, it's going to make it impossible for any bandit to, lay down his arms. I remember that the governor of Katsina State just cautioned all his other, colleagues, brother governors, they call themselves, who are preparing to negotiate with bandits or even grant them amnesty, as this Sheikh Gumi has been going around, propagating. He says he had given amnesty twice to the bandits in Katsina, but they always return to the bushes because that is where they make their money. No matter how much money you make from one kidnap, you are more likely to begin to seek more kidnaps. Apart from the fact that it is addictive, it is also a truism that no matter how much money you have, it's going to get finished. And once it is finished, you'll find the same trick that you use in getting the last money to get another one. So I believe it's very easy. We must government has been supporting, or a lot of government officials have been supporting the settlement of ransoms. But once it stops, I believe everything will stop. And it's important that people in government know that it is wrong. Because in America, they say, once you settle a blackmailer, he continues to blackmail you every time. So that's the situation with kidnapping and banditry in Nigeria.
Okay, sir. Sir, there have been debates whether or not the bandit should be granted amnesty. What do you have to say about that?
For me, I just explained this where I said negotiating with bandits is not a positive thing, but I could also add that if bandits are willing to, lay down their arms by themselves and move over to, the right path, I don't see any reason why they shouldn't be allowed to do that. But to just simply come out and make a pronouncement that all bandits and insurgents and kidnappers are, given amnesty, a blanket amnesty, is, I think, detrimental to the pursuit of progress, peace and progress in our country. So I think there is no straightforward answer to this, but different methods, like we say in broken English, there are many ways of killing a rat. Different measures can help in dousing the tension.
Okay, so I'll take this other question, and it says, so you spoke about the state police, who will pay their salaries, who will equip the state police. You're on record to have said government can't afford 30,000 Nigerian minimum wage. Who will pay the state police, and how much do you think the state police officers will earn per month?
Okay, I think this is a conversation that came up even today in the office. By the way, I was present when the Committee of Pro-Chancellors of State-Owned Universities visited the chairman of the Nigerian Governors Forum a couple of hours ago today. And they were also asking that state governments take over the burden of paying their salaries. Now, one of the arguments that was, propounded there, I think, was that states also suffer from the unitary system that continues to deny people, salaries and things like that. The states can pay salaries if the public allows states to actually retain only people that are useful to the civil service than anything else. The argument from the Nigerian Labour Congress, who is demanding for the minimum wage, is that You know, they want a blanket salary for every civil servant across the country. That is not possible because, like we know, the governor of Ekiti State does not get the same salary as the governor of Lagos State because they do not share, they do not have the same resources. Lagos has far more resources than, Ekiti State. And it's the same thing in the United States. The governor of Maine does not get the same salary as the governor of California because, they both have two senators and, have same equal representatives in the, capital, but they have different economies. So even if, state governments are going to pay state police, they are going to pay state police according to their resources. And remember, those of you who are staying in the Western world know that the police force is a revenue generating agency. It's not simply a security agency. That's why policemen issue tickets, policemen issue fines on certain, misdemeanors in their countries. Because the police is supposed to be so effective that it can even raise funds from the kind of crimes that people commit that do not need to send people to jail. So if, of course, states are allowed to run state police, there is definitely going to be the kind of resources that would sustain them if, like somebody said this morning, if governors and the people bite the bullet. Because there are certain decisions that we are afraid to take just because of maybe political expediency or economic, repercussions. I want to believe that if you stand out to present yourself as a leader in a society, you should be able to bear the consequences of either, enhancing your livelihood and your economy, or even losing your life in the process, because that is what leadership is about. It's a commitment to die for your people, not necessarily die physically, but you may even symbolically. When you decide to lead people, you are supposed to take care of them the best way you can, and not, publicly aggrandize, self-aggrandize, and the other things that we see that are common in our country. So I believe, yes, if we decide to implement the state police, I think we can also devise means of sustaining them so that there will be an efficient police force.
Okay, Barkindo, that's a really good answer. I wondered if I can just ask a quick question here, if that's okay, Tongwang. Can I just ask?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, I was just gonna say, so in the context of how things are structured right now, I'm just wondering, given our many, many, many problems, literally in all, there's not one sector that would say is performing optimally. In fact, you can almost say that all of them are suboptimal, performing woefully. I'm just wondering that, what your thoughts are. Do you think Nigeria, as we stand right now, that if we have let's say, if we have a leader, perhaps that is very forthright and very focused, do you think there is massive hope in turning all of these myriad of issues around? Or do you think, given the decay that's in the system so much, that it would take more than one person? Nigeria almost needs a team, or a whole team, dozens of people all rowing in one direction before some of this can happen. The reason why I'm asking this question, just this evening I saw a news article where an ASP was caught in this racket of kidnapping, I think somewhere down south. Now, when you start to see that even the people who are, this is a top ranking officer, Assistant Commissioner of Police, caught in the act of kidnapping. So the people who are the gatekeepers of these areas are actually the ones perpetuating it. You go to the judiciary, the situation is the same. You go to, much of the sector of the economy is rotten. My question is, what do you think the recipe would be for starting to turn things around? Is it a team? Is it a person? What does it look like, I suppose?
Thank you very much, Doctor, for that very elaborate question. I deliberately avoided the issue of corruption because we're talking about the issue of unity and disintegration. But obviously, this issue that you brought up would only lead me to use the benefit of hindsight. You know, I have been fortunate, I would say, to live in this country since probably a few light years after independence. So I've experienced Nigeria good, bad, and ugly. I would say precisely that every government in Nigeria takes the color of its leader. So if you go to Plateau State, for instance, the government and the people all look like Lalong. If you go to Lagos State, they look like, you know, Sanwo-Olu, and if you go to Adamawa State, they look like Filtri, over and over again, because it is who leads them that they follow. And this would take me back to the last question that I answered, that we have a problem with both the leadership and the followership of this country. Now, coming to solutions, I would tell you that I also experienced the government of General Murtala Mohammed, who lasted for only 6 months between 1975 and 1976, February 13th. This is a guy who, as soon as he became leader, divested himself of everything that he stole from the Nigerian people. He said, well, he shared his wealth into two and said, or maybe I wouldn't know the ratio, 70, 30, 60, 40, or whatever, but said, this is what I believed belonged to me, and the rest belonged to the people of Nigeria. And then called on everybody. At the time, we didn't have ministers, we had federal commissioners. Called on every federal commissioner to return what he thought did not belong to him. And there are stories or tales about those who did not return enough, and he called them and rebuked them personally. Some of them even cursed them in the name of Nigerian people. So in terms of how or who would resolve the problems of this country, I'll tell you simply that one good leader would do that, because in all the countries of the world, it's the same one good leader that looks for the team that helps him in fixing his country. And sometimes, even if one good leader is surrounded by criminals, these criminals would have to mark their ways because they believe that this good leader is going to make sure that they come back to the right path. So it's a very simple thing that we have the resources. We have people like you who live in London. We have a lot of you who live in the United States. We have others who live in the rural areas here. It is because governance has become something that is of corruptive value to Nigerians. And that's why the best people are not in power. Because I remember there's a philosopher who says, if we don't go into politics, we will be ruled by our idiots. So if for some reason, there are different cases where people are being ruled by their idiots, but it's not because they are all idiots. It's because the best people among them have not risen and stepped up to the plate to want to contribute or to want to lead people. So the problem of our country cannot be simply wished away and by the thinking that we do not have leaders who can put us aright. That's not a very palatable way to think. I believe and strongly do that there are good people who will fix Nigeria in a matter of days, and everybody would begin to do things right. And because of the amount of resources that God has endowed us with in Nigeria, we are more likely to rise faster than even Japan if we were determined to be good people, because we have the resources and we have the manpower. The only thing we don't have is the sincerity to begin to treat each other like brothers who require the same level of progress to live in this peaceful world. Thank you.
Thank you very much for those wonderful thoughts. We wouldn't leave without saying thank you for answering. But then some people have some things to say, and this is coming from Rotshak Golmut. This person is saying, well, I do agree with the panelists on the issue of Nigeria, not at an imminent threat of divide. My favorable saying is, in Nigeria, unfortunately, there are more Hausas, Igbos, Yorubas, Ngas, Christians, Muslims, etc. than Nigerians in Nigeria. Will he therefore, that is the panelist, will he therefore agree that the necessary ingredients are gathered for an eventual breakup? I think he has most respectfully just wishfully hope that the mess bedeviling us may not eventually break the country up. Are you there, Mr. Barkindo?
Yes, I'm right here. And thank you very much for that question, because it brings me, it even makes me more patriotic because, yes, we have problems and we try to describe ourselves by tribe and religion. But I can tell you that is also because we still have not had the foundation, the leadership that would give us a different orientation. I can tell you from personal experience that I was in Rwanda about 2 years ago, and you cannot find a Hutu or a Tutsi among Rwandans. No matter how hard you try, they only call themselves Nigerians. So I want to believe that if we're able to, drop that garb of, religiosity and ethnicity, I believe that we will certainly, move forward in very little time, because these descriptions do not make a man. There is a criminal in every tribe that you have mentioned, and there is a prostitute in them. There is also a very good people, number of people that are right in all those tribes. So the only thing is that our common mentality, our common, sensibilities have driven us to live with suspicion amongst each other. And that is why we're not making it forward. I want to suggest that as young people, we should, continue to develop this charisma of or character of wanting to love one another and of seeing each other like somebody else's parent, a child, or somebody else's parent. Because the first thing I remember when I see people is that all these people are loved equally by their mothers. It is only when somebody else comes and starts describing them that he sees that there's a difference. Whether you are short, tall, light-skinned, or dark-skinned, your mother loves you anyway. So where do we begin to find hate? Because I think hate is something that we evolved. I remember in the 70s and 80s, we didn't know which student was a Muslim or which student was a Christian, which student was from the North or which one was from the South. Nigeria just rolled. But today, with all these, dichotomies, we are driving ourselves into the ditch. And I think I'm not just wishing, I'm an incurable optimist. And I believe that there would be time when these things will go away. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Just before we round up, this is coming from Jack Sparrow, and he's saying leadership is a commitment. He is quoting you. You said leadership is a commitment to die for your people. And he's saying, Mr. Barkindo, this is a great quote. I wish you tell this to the 36 governors that you speak for. What do you think about this?
Thank you very much, Jack Sparrow. I wish that those people that I work for were the type of people that would listen to me. But I work with them from a different perspective. And thankfully, I have a mind of my own. And when the opportunity supplies itself, I try as much as I can, because I work in the National Nigeria Governors Forum Secretariat, where there are a lot of professionals. I'm probably the worst educated professional in the NGF. All the other people are first-class people. They are very well chosen. And we all try together to give the best advice, and especially when it comes to governance issues, to try to guide, the mechanisms of the subnationals into doing things for their people and making this country great. Unfortunately, they are the principals. We are the workers. So it's only optional and discretionary that they listen or take our advice. But as much as we can, we have a secretariat that tries as much as possible to guide them in the right way. Whether they take it or not is another question. And that also is a subjective question, because it depends on where you are and who you're working with. For me, I can tell you that I have a kind of, belief that maybe 2/3 of the governors of this country have, the people at heart and are willing to solve their problems. There are a few that I know that I, of course, would not mention, that are not living up to, their expectations. And that may be for other reasons, not necessarily because they're bad. Because even today, I noticed that one of the governors was telling, the committee of vice chancellors that don't assume that all the people who are in politics are not, intellectually inclined. There are very smart people among governors. So sometimes even the very smart, fall by the wayside when it comes to counting good people. So I believe I will try as much as I can to give them this advice coming from Jack Sparrow, and I'll try to quote you, that you are the one who is asking me to go and give that
Okay,
advice.
thank you very much. Thank you very much. Please, we wouldn't leave without reading the comments of Lydia Dusu. It's already 9 o'clock, but then please permit me to read this. I think the government seems to underrate the level of discontent among citizens, especially the south of the Niger. The invasion on our land has never been so bad. So to think the agitation for going our separate ways should not be treated with kid gloves by living on the assumption that we have a lot that keeps us together than separate us. Did you get that, sir?
Yeah, I got her, and I agree with her too. Yes, the tempers are rising, and they're continuing to rise. It's the mechanisms for controlling them that are only warming up. So I believe, yes, a lot of people are truly, truly angry. I also believe that it's not only on one side of the divide, it's everywhere. And I believe that the mechanism, I still insist that the mechanisms for controlling all these tempers and angers are available to us, because they are human problems and they are all self-inflicted. For a very short while, if we're able to get some of these things out of our way, we will no longer have these, despairs. So that's
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Abdulrazaque Bello Barkindo, Head of Media and Public Affairs. Thank you for joining in, everyone. We have Peter Dater, Manji Dalen, Panshak Juan, my colleague. We have Jack Sparrow, we have Mimshak, we have Salamatu, we have Firo, we have Isioma. We have a lot of people. I can see Polika Gomos, my colleague Friday Bako, Lydia Dusu, awesome people, Paula Ole. We have Osas, a couple of people here. James, I can see Mildred Mbok, we can see Joy Azi, Joy, and another Joy, and David Zumle, and Sandy Dauda right here. We say thank you very much. Tongred Bakle, are you there? Do you want to share some thoughts before you go? Just your last words, please.
I don't have much to say. Just want to thank everyone for being here this evening and taking out time to also attend. And as usual, we have a lot of webinars coming up, and we want them to keep in touch with us also through our social media platforms by following us and then also sharing our links to other people too, so they can also attend the webinars. So that would mean a lot to us. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much, Tong Ren. Thank you very much, everyone, for tuning in today. Thank you. We had an awesome conversation. I promise you, Viewpoint promises to have wonderful conversations, and we promise you that I don't want to shoot myself, but then Abdulrazaque Bello Barkindo will be back here to talk about more things. So thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Abdulrazaque Barkindo. It's been very awesome listening to you. Thank you very much. And then
Mr. Barkindo, thank you so much for being with us today. We really appreciate it. It's been incredibly insightful. Thank you for being so direct and very forward with us. We've taken a lot of nuggets, and hopefully we will cycle back with you, I think, in a couple of maybe months or weeks to come back and speak. Thank you so much again.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. All right. Bye.
All right. Have a great night, everyone.